Hi again. Today we're going to do a Yin style restorative yoga practice. Yin style just means that we're going to hold the poses for a bit longer than normal. So we're going to be using props today, and I'm sure you've got the stuff around your house, a blanket, a comforter, pillows, and towels. So I'm going to show you how to use all of those to help you out in some common yoga poses. But we are going to be holding these poses a little bit longer than you may be used to. So make sure that you're in some comfortable clothing, something warm, a warm room, maybe even some socks, because we're not going to be moving around as much as usual. We are going to begin sitting, so this is the first place we can use one of our props, one of our blankets perhaps. We can place it underneath our sit bones. And this just helps elevate our hips, helps them tilt forward, and allows us a little more opening through our core to access our breathing. So let's just find whatever's comfortable. If it's more comfortable for you to have your legs out long, you can have them out long. Otherwise, let's just come here and just take a few deep breaths into our belly, finding ourselves grounding into our sit bones, maybe into that towel. Inhaling and exhaling through our nose. And we want to see if we can release tension with each exhale. One thing about Yin Yoga, it allows us to release that tension. And we're going to go into our first restorative pose, opening up our hips. Now you can stay sitting on that one towel if you want, or remove it. But we're going to take the soles of our feet together and open up. Now I'm very open here, so my knees automatically open. Most people only get about this far, so this is where you can use some of your props. Place them under one knee and the other. And we're just going to hang out here for about a minute or so. Lengthening up tall. We can work on opening up and maybe even coming forward, using our exhales to sink each time. So nice deep breath, exhale and sink. We call this sinking breath. So depending on how open we are today, because every day is a little different, we may find ourselves being able to go a little further forward, maybe not. But again, each of us is finding our own place. We all have poses that we're comfortable in, poses that we struggle with. So let's just find any resistance there may be. Exhale and let it sink away. Hopefully we're in a quiet room, some place where we can experience some peace. In these longer holds, we will probably get a deeper release. So just relax and enjoy it. We should be breathing easily. Before we get too carried away, let's go ahead and sit up. We're going to continue with some hip opening. And for this one, we want to bring our blanket, towel, pillow, whatever in the center. So we're going to open our legs, getting a little deeper into the inner thigh. You may find that you want to use several layers here. And if you're ever in a studio that has bolsters, this is one of the things they'll use them for. So we're just going to use our bolster or pillow and comforter here. And depending on how open you're feeling today, again, you may or may not use all of these things. But let's just find a place where we can rest our head forward, maybe our forehead. And again, using our exhales to sink. Breathing into any resistance we may feel. Exhale. And releasing that tension. And just celebrating the fact that we're doing something good for our bodies. Some deep releases. And we may notice, even though we're opening through the hips here, we may notice some tension in our shoulders. We may be holding tension in our jaw. So let's see if we can find other places that we may be holding tension in this pose and let those go. One of the things we want to do in any yoga pose is release the tension that's in other parts of our body. Continuing with deep breaths, in and out through our nose if possible. And let's go ahead and sit up. We're going to reach back and just open our chest for a moment, finding those deep breaths, a little counter pose to those poses. We're going to move to the floor next, so just stay breathing here and chest expansion. I have a lot of people who come to my classes who bring their own little travel pillows and towels, things like that, or things that you can throw in your bag and just carry with you when you come to a class. But whenever we move to the floor like we're about to, that I have this small little group of 5 people who have that pillow out to place under their head. So that's what I'm going to do with one of the with the pillow that I've got here. I'm going to go ahead and use all the props that I've got in all of the ways imaginable, but you work to what works for you, all right? So I'm going to show you all the possibilities. Let's open up our chest, and you just kind of figure out what works for you. Like I said, we're going to be holding these poses a little bit longer than you may be used to, so having the props there will make it more comfortable. We're going to listen to our own body and do what works for us. So let's go ahead and begin to make our way to the floor. Again, I'm going to have that there for my head. So let's just take support underneath one knee, tuck and roll. And let's just take a moment while we're here to kind of shake things out, move it out. So this is one way we can use a pillow here if we choose, but we don't have to. And maybe rock. Our next restorative pose is going to be our bridge pose. And this is one place where we can use, again, whatever prop we have. We're going to take our feet. Let's go ahead and bring our fingers down by our side, touch our fingers and our heels. And we're going to lift up to our bridge pose. So we can take whatever we have here and place it underneath our hips. And that way we get the nice opening of this pose, and I might need to roll it up a little bit. We get the opening of this pose without all the work. And of course, each of us is at different levels. We can even turn our palms up and get a little opening across our chest. So here we want to think about expanding with our inhales and then squeezing into our navel with our exhales. So having a prop here really helps us to get the opening of this pose. That's one of the things I like about these restorative poses with blankets, bolsters, pillows, is we get the opening and the benefits of the pose without having to put all that work into it. This allows me to relax in my glutes, relax in the legs, and still get that opening across the front of the body. And it's a beautiful, wonderful opening. Back bends are perfect for helping heal our posture, open us up, allowing us to breathe. In this case, we also have our hips above our heart, so we're in a little inversion. We may be in more of an inversion depending on the props that we're using and how open we are today. But inversions help stimulate our immune system. So they're nice and restorative. They also bring blood to our heart, blood to our head, stimulating some thinking skills perhaps. Let's just find that opening. This is a good place to practice our deep breaths. Now some of us may be open enough that we can take our legs out long. Now this gets very intense, especially in the lower back. It's a big opening across the front of the hips, those hip flexors. If you sit a lot, this is a wonderful one to try. However, if it's straining on the lower back, straining on the hips, come back up, all right? But if you can, give it a shot, because when we've got these blankets underneath us, it gives us an opportunity to really open up. And maybe even breathing down into our belly to further open that space there. If we are in this long version, let's go ahead and walk our feet back up to that bridge. We'll take at least 3 more breaths here. And let's start to gear ourselves up for getting out of this pose. We want to push into our heels, lift up, and we can remove whatever's underneath us. And let's lower down. And again, just rock a little bit here. We're going to go back to some deep hip opening again with Reclined Butterfly. So it's like what we just did, soles of our feet together on the floor. And you'll notice the knees don't go all the way down. So here again, placing something underneath them. I'm going to use this since it's bigger. And just reclining here for a moment. And again, I'm just using all these props to show you variations that you can do. So we just want to come here, get these things placed. I like to open my arms out really wide and more of a gesture of letting go. This is a good pose here for letting go. We tend to hold a lot of tension in our hips, our thighs, memories from our childhood, perhaps traumas from our childhood. So this is an opportunity to let those go. Breathing deeply as always. Noticing where we are holding tension in our body. We may not even be feeling it in our hips and legs. We might be feeling it in our chest or again in our jaw. And if we do feel tension somewhere, we do tend to crunch up the jaw. So let's give that a moment to release. Making sure to let go. We can even open our hands in a gesture of letting go. And let's see if we can begin to breathe into our belly. Belly breathing is the most relaxing breath known to the human body. So let's see if we can keep our ribs and chest still and just let our belly inflate with our inhale and deflate or sink with our exhales. See if we can sink a little more with each exhale. And here again, we want to gear ourselves for moving out of this pose. Just drawing in through our navel, and we want to use our core to help us lift our legs up. We need to use our hands. And we'll bring our knees together, separating our feet out to the edges of our mat. So just a little counter pose here. And then just shake it out. So we're going to move into a twist next. And again, I'm just going to show you every variation that you can do here. We can squeeze one of these props between our knees. We're going to hug our knees in, open our arms wide, and we're going to lower all the way over to one side. Now, if our knees don't come all the way down, here's another way that we can use whatever prop we have. We can let them rest there. But we want to get both shoulders flat on the floor, adjusting all of our props wherever they work for us. Arms up, parallel or out wide. And again, just breathing here. And if we choose, we can even turn our head over in the opposite direction of our knees. So if that's accessible, that's an option to enhance the pose. It is a little challenging to breathe here. I always find it interesting to try different breathing techniques in a twist, because all your organs are kind of squeezing in on each other, squeezing in on the lungs, the diaphragm, and all of those internal organs. And makes breathing an interesting experience, in my opinion. But twists are also considered detoxing. Imagine a wet sponge and you take it and you wring out all that water and dirt from where you cleaned. That's what this is supposed to be doing to your body, just kind of wringing out all those toxins that are in the body. Another thing that cleanses our body of toxins is our exhales. So the deeper we can breathe, the more toxins we will release through our air. And we always want to keep things even on both sides. So if we do have something between our knees, let's squeeze it. Otherwise, we'll squeeze our knees together. Come up to the center. And let's just release for a moment. Taking our legs down and arms overhead. Just straightening everything out. Stretching and lengthening our spine. And then we're going to take this to the other side. So this side may be different. May not be. But go ahead and get those props in place if you need them. Open the arms wide. And let's take it to the other side. Adjusting as you need. And here again, we can take our head in the opposite direction and just really get that full ringing sensation done through our core. And this also stimulates our digestive system and our immune system by allowing us to get fluids and things moving out of that stomach area. Lymph tends to collect in our stomach area. It's one of the places it collects. So doing twists and other poses like we've done gets that stuff stirred up and moving so that we can release it. And again, breathing as deeply as we can. Noticing the sensations on this side. Releasing tension wherever we feel it. We can always, after a little while, adjust whatever props we're using if we need to. And just remember that we're restoring in our mind as well as our body. Now let's go ahead and hug in our navel. We're going to come back to the center. Let's lengthen out long again. Reaching overhead. Maybe wiggling our fingers and toes. And let's bring it back in. So we're going to come to that restorative version of our bridge pose again. So let's go ahead and press our hips up. If we're going to use something, let's press it under. We're going to get more of an inversion effect this time. So depending on your comfort level, we're going to stay right here in the supported bridge, or we're going to take our feet up into the air. So here again, if we are on a prop, we've got our hips elevated a little bit, so they're a little bit higher than our heart, which is going to accentuate the effect of this inversion. And of course, we have variations that we can look at here. Legs open, we can play around and a little split, or we can just hang out with our feet straight up in the air. Maybe moving at our feet and ankles. Wiggling our toes. So again, inversions, one of the other places that lymph collects is in our feet. So inversions allow all the fluids, all the lymph to come out of our feet. It refreshes our feet. If we have varicose veins or swelling in our legs, these inversions help draw that out. Of course, if we were in a full inversion, we would get a little more stimulation of blood to the head. But this is helping with our immune system because it's drawing the lymph and toxins out of our lower extremities. It's always good to get a different perspective on life, looking at things from a totally different point of view. But it's also good because gravity affects our body in certain ways, and this is giving us that opposite experience of gravity, which helps to relax the veins so they're not having to work so much. And it just kind of gives everything, from our hips down, a little break, a momentary break from all the hard work that they do carrying us through our lives. So let's just take a few more moments here. Again, moving if we're inclined, trying some different variations. Remembering those deep breaths. And we're slowly going to come down out of this. And we're going to come to our final pose, Shavasana, or corpse pose. We use this for final relaxation. And here again, a lot of people like to have a pillow. You may choose to have something under your back. A lot of us are able to take this out long, but that may be straining on the lower back. So one of the places that we can use this is underneath our knees. And again, I said I'm going to use this in every spot that we can. So kind of play around with it, figure out what works for you. We can even have a little bit underneath our arms here. So just begin to play around with these props, finding what feels most comfortable for your body right now. And once we're in that place, the object of this one is called corpse pose for a reason. If somebody were to look in a class, and we were doing this in a classroom, they would think they were looking at the morgue. The object is to be still, which is very hard for people, especially these days. We're so used to rushing and running, trying to get everywhere fast. And it's really restorative, refreshing and renewing to take some time and just be still. Interestingly enough, this is, for at least 80% of the people out there, the hardest pose that they ever do in yoga. because being still is such a challenge. The other challenge is to keep our mind still. And that one may be the hardest challenge of all. See if we can quiet our mind for a moment, not thinking about anything. So let's go ahead and just release our breath. Let it come naturally. And I'm going to give you about a minute of silence, just to see how it feels. And let's just take a few deep breaths into our belly. Find that relaxing belly breath. And as we've been here for a little while, let's begin with our fingers and toes. If we have managed to be completely still, we want to start moving slowly, moving up our arms and legs. And just seeing whatever movement our body needs, maybe turning our head side to side. And then we want to bring our knees in and roll over to one side. Now, if we weren't using a prop, we'd use our arm here. But since we've got a pillow, we can use the pillow underneath our head here. We've been on the floor for a while. We've had our legs in the air for a part of that. If we were to sit up really fast, there's the possibility of getting dizzy and fainting. So we want to take our time, particularly if we're doing a restorative practice like we've done today. Let's just continue to keep that slowness, that concept of stillness in our minds and in our body. And making sure that we feel ready, what we're going to do is take our top hand and push it into the floor and help press ourselves up. So let's just come around to whatever comfortable position we can find. And just take a moment to notice how this feels. And let's take a big inhale. Exhaling hands to our heart. And I hope you feel rested, restored, and renewed. Namaste.